Hello, chess lovers. This is Björn Knöppel together with Thomas Engqvist, and today I will talk about gambits. It's a very fascinating word. There are lots of gambits, both as white and as black. But today I will talk about a book about gambits, and it's this book, which is about Fajarowicz, and it's a book from Tim Harding about the Fajarowicz Gambit, which is a branch of the Budapest Gambit. It's a branch of the Budapest Gambit, and he has written a book, 96, about this, and he's a very high-related writer about chess history, and so. And in this book, it's like this. It's about 200 and it's a lot of pages, 220 to 25 pages, and there are 12 chapters and 300 uncommented games in the end, but all the variations starts about move number 4, number 5, and it's developed. The Fajarowicz Gambits is developed since Hungarian players started to play this. In the beginning of the modern era, in the beginning of the 90s, I think about 1915, 1917, they started to play this, invented this, as they were trying to get away of the classical Queen's Gambit and find some other modern ways to play against the Queen's Gambit. Yes, so they invented E5, and the Fajarowicz Gambit starts like D4, knight F6, C4, and E7, E5. It's a gambit, so you give away your pawn on E5, and the main variation is D takes E5, and then it separates. The branch is knight to E4, but the ordinary Budapest Gambit, which is the main variation, is knight to G4. But we will talk about Fajarowicz Gambit today. And it's a very interesting gambit, and still today they play the Fajarowicz in higher leagues as well, but perhaps not in the super grand tournaments. But still, it's a surprise weapon, and what makes it a bit special is it's a gambit, and it's a very tactical gambit, and there are some tactics, which means that the knight on E4 is very central situated, and there is a threat of queen to H4 to attack on F2. So mostly I can show. Mostly the white players try to get up here to get rid of this, and from here the main variation is bishop to C5, like this, there. Threats on F2, so they play E2, E3, and then the bishop here comes inside. That's a bit worse, but still then it appears on many different variations for white. But there is also a trap in this variation, like if you instead play bishop d6, which is a modern way of playing in this position. Many players think that they can win the rook over there and play d5. And that looks like it's won for white, but it's not that easy, because black plays bishop e7, and black takes the bishop, of course, like this. But then black plays knight to c6, and now the queen is threat to get trapped by horsey knight to c5. So white usually tries to save his queen to play queen to a6. But then black, the threat for black falls down, so it plays bishop to b4 check, and it takes off the field. So they have to try to get rid of this. And then the trap is completed with knight to c5, and if white then plays the only square which is free at b5, the trap goes down to a6, and goodbye for the queen. That's the end of the game, or the end for white. He will lose his queen and probably his game as well. So that's just a trap, but most people don't fall for this. But it's interesting to see what is in that position as well. So yes, it's very, very interesting indeed. It's a bit slippery, this one. It was like this. I don't know it's right, but it's the start position of the Fajarowicz in the third move, yes, knight to e4. But it's also nice to notice that instead of knight to e4, you can play knight to, from here, knight to g4. But then we are back in the main variation, the Budapest Gambit, and that we'll talk about later. So this is what I can say about Fajarowicz. It's a very exciting opening, and Tim Harding and some other grand players says that it's still very tactical, and the book is very interesting. And still today, you can use it as a surprise weapon when you play in club tournaments. It's like other unusual openings, that you can have it in your arsenal and use it as a surprise weapon. When you meet a cautious player, a positional player, a player who don't play so tactical or so forth, or you just surprise as you play ordinary games, and then suddenly you play a Fajarowicz Gambit or even a Budapest Gambit. I will also talk more about the Budapest Gambit, but more about variations in my next clip. And this is about this variation. You have any questions, Thomas, about this game? This opening? This
no,
branch?
I think you showed the most important opening trap after 4b6.
Yes.
Which I assume some white players may fall into, actually.
Yes.
Yeah, b6 in this position.
B6, yes.
Yeah, b6.
But mostly the black players play bishop c5, and this is the main variation, e3. But as a complement, as an alternative, I think b6 is very interesting. It's a very interesting variation indeed. This one. It's not so much. It's a more modern approach.
Exactly. It's a hyper-modern approach.
Hyper-modern approach. And I think this is not the best mode, of course, but you have to look in the database and so forth, how to play as white, I think, yeah.
Yeah, but I think if you don't know this very unusual variation, the first move you look at here is queen d5.
Yes. You as a professional player would be thinking about queen to d5, even if you wouldn't play it. But
I would analyze queen d5, and I would see bishop b7, and after queen takes b7, knight c6, I would sense that maybe the queen can be trapped here,
yes.
And check some further variations. But I think the key here is if the opponent plays b6 very quickly, it's not clever, because then I know this is an opening variation. So you should be a little bit slow here as a black player.
You have to be psychological and try to think a bit before you make the move, because then the opponent thinks that you forget about the threat to a. So, but it's a tricky opening variation, and I think they told before that there are many players who fall in this trap, indeed, and lost the games because they lost their queen this way. But there are also other traps in the Fajarowicz Gambit, and as well as in the Budapest Gambit. Well, that's why these both opening against d4 are very tricky. And you can say that gambits all over are a bit more tricky than ordinary openings, because they sacrifice almost a pawn. A gambit is a pawn, and as a compensation for the pawn, they get activity, they get tempo, they get development, and that makes it more tactical. So if you meet a positional player in a game and he's more positional than tactical, it could be a good idea to use such openings like the Fajarowicz or the Benku to get a team as a surprise weapon.
Yeah, the knight on e4 is very dangerous because it puts pressure on f2, d2 and c3.
Yes.
So the black on f8, white must be prepared both for bishop c5 and bishop b4. And in that sense, I think b6 is a very clever continuation.
It is.
Psychologically and tactically speaking,
It's
as a surprise weapon.
Yes, and it's a sideline of the bishop c5, which is the main variation, but you can also play b6 is another variation.
Yeah, and sidelines are meant for surprise. That's the idea with sidelines.
Yeah, I can give a little outweight and say that Bent Larsen, he used to play not the first variation, but the third or the fourth variation in more or less unknown openings, just to get his own play and surprise his opponents, and that was one of his trademarks when he was playing. But still, the Budapest or the Fajarowicz, which Tim Harding wrote about in this book, is a very interesting gambit, and if you want something new but you have to analyze it before, you learn the Fajarowicz or the Budapest or both, and you use it whenever you want, and you get some interesting games, I can assure you that. So that's for this book, and I hope you get interested of one of the interesting gambits, even if it's not 100% true. It's a bit risky, but all gambits are a bit risky. This is a very interesting opening and variation as well. So take a look at this, and welcome. I will see you again in my next time. Have a nice time. Bye bye.